We'll stand up for somebody else's shit, and then we'll just take whatever from whoever does it to when it does to us, because essentially we were never taught to value ourselves. A lot of us were taught to take care of others, but we weren't necessarily taught how to value ourselves. So reparenting yourself is becoming your own friend.
Roll me, Mac.
How do you feel about the possibility of women who have been in their protective masculine energy for so long coming into their feminine? There's very much a strong possibility, but it's really, I think it goes off of the individual herself and what she's willing to do, the courage that she's willing to have, because the whole reason for operating your masculine is coming from a place of fear. I believe, I think that one of the reasons that a woman would operate in her masculine around just about everybody else is, merely fear of being hurt, fear of being made to feel little, ridiculed, whatever it is, literally the same things that men would use them for. But the society is a little bit kinder to that of a woman versus that of a man when it comes to that, because a woman's not told to stop acting like a bitch. Well, it depends on the context, I guess, right? But in that context, of which we all know what we're referring to right now, like it's a lot easier to receive a woman operating in her emotions versus seeing a man. For a woman that is looking to do so, to essentially adjust, right? What would happen is getting over the notion that I'm going to operate in my masculine until I see a male worthy of me operating in my feminine, because the way it works is opposites attract. So if I carry myself in my feminine, I'm probably going to attract your masculine ass. And then you're going to resent me for said feminine energy at a later date, because we tend to ignore red flags when we have a crush on someone. Again, looking at somebody, for face value, attraction wise, it's one thing, but how you carry the energy that you decide to carry yourself in, and being honest, this is it's still somewhat it's a recent thing. I'll say from a purpose standpoint, like purposely trying to utilize more masculine energy than feminine energy. That is a new thing, I would say, for myself. But it takes time. It takes time, and sometimes really you gotta fake it till you make it. And I would say I recommend the same thing for a woman. Fake it till you make it, because eventually whatever you practice is what you tend to embody. Everything we do now, we've mastered it by doing it so many times. So, I mean, at one point in time, you were very soft and all of that shit, but something happened, something triggered that to happen to where you wanted to use, a little bit more force, a protective side. And you vowed that ain't nobody ever gonna get that close to hurt me again, I imagine, because that's commonly what us males do too when it comes to like relationships and shit. Just like, all right, I ain't gonna never let a woman get me like that again. Is that helpful? I guess case pending. It would be the case for that. But I would recommend for a woman to recognize, to lose the idea, that I'm going to be masculine until I find a man that is that brings out my feminine. That is a recipe for disaster. I mean, if you're fortunate enough that you have friends that might be operating in your masculine and stuff, that might be operating in masculine, and maybe they could, again, essentially do what I'm saying, just talk with you and understand that opposites tend to attract. So if opposites tend to attract, why would you carry yourself in your masculine frame? I mean, in your masculine energy, if you're trying to attract that. That's not how that works, because I don't want to be with a woman that acts aggressive, by default. That's just like a guy with a guy. And no, I would say one that is soft yet strong. Your strength is on the inside. Your strength is in your feminine, as I've mentioned before. But it doesn't make you weak because you carry yourself in your soft energy. Not at all. Because it's that level of protection that you come with. Both of us being equipped with like guns and shit like that, that's all well and good. I'm not going to equate that to just masculine, like, oh, that's a masculine traitor or nothing like that. But that ability, you've been protecting yourself for so long. All right, well, now you get to kind of let go of the reins a little bit and allow that person who you come across, to kind of come in and be that and use their masculine energy, because we both have it. And let's just be clear, we both have masculine energy and feminine energy, but let's also talk about what it's deemed to be attractive to the opposite sex, or even I would say even for same sex. You know what I mean? As far as what role is going to be portrayed here in this connection that we have formed on intimacy. You know what I mean? So if indeed that a woman wanted to operate in her, like I said, her feminine, it's really just it's going to be a choice. It's not going to be an easy choice. I'm going to call it a challenging choice. I won't say it's easy nor hard, but it's definitely a challenging choice to make, because if you're trying to attract the masculine, the one that's going to just like kind of take off some of the responsibilities that you have done for so long. You know what I mean? Like, it's a lot of like I said, a lot of female friends that I know, even it's like from, I would say, growing up and all that stuff, and just having conversations with them now, one of the biggest things is like they felt like they had to do it all themselves, or it wasn't going to get done. So, and if you continuously do it, how is that person ever going to do it? You know what I mean? It's like being at the job and you're constantly doing the work for your coworker. How are they ever going to get the job down if they don't get the chance to do it? And why do they still have the job if you don't trust them to do it in the same breath? But like that possibility, I foresee therapy for sure. I recommend therapy. I'm not saying it's a one-all fix-all thing by any means, but it'll definitely get to the root of how did I get like this, right? And I recommend therapy for men too. I'm very strongly about us men going to therapy and figuring out how we got this way too, because we don't necessarily have that many safe spaces to express our emotions without being inadvertently judged for saying what we're about to say about our emotions. You know what I mean? So I found therapy to be an effective space for me to kind of talk about a lot of the stuff that how I was perceiving life. because it's really just about how you're perceiving life. It's not just what happened, but what your thoughts on what happened. But getting back to the possibility of a woman being able to tap into her feminine, it would take a woman that was she would have to humble herself in the sense of being stubborn about I have to do it this way because that's the only way it's going to work. Well, is it really working? Because you're not getting what you want in the sense of a I say mate. By you operating in your masculine, you end up with another son, and he has to operate in his feminine energy in order for this to balance. And both don't feel valued by any means. One feels like they're doing all the fucking work. The other one feels like that they're not trusted enough to even do anything, so they just accept it. Like, fuck it, fine. She don't want me to do nothing. I'm gonna just let her do it. And then it turns into unnecessary arguments. Experience. This is experience talking. But what can be done is just honestly an honest conversation with yourself, as a person, as a woman, and being like, is this honestly working for me? Is the thing that I've been doing that I thought has been effective, is it working for me? And if it isn't, with this whole me operating in this protective masculine energy, yeah, it's great for kids. It's great for, like I said, it's great for when you got kids, for sure. Like for a woman, especially a single mom, it makes sense to have that protective masculine energy. But that masculine energy that comes from a male, there's no way to replace that. Just like there's no way to replace that feminine energy that comes from a mother. You will never be able to replace that. That feeling that you get, that feeling of home that you get for a mother that just operates in her soft energy for her son, for her daughters, whatever that is. And then same for that masculine energy that one would get from a father, and that comforting protection and all that stuff. I mean, like I said, it works. It's yin and yang. Like one is not better than the other. It's a puzzle piece in a sense, and when it interlocks and it aligns to the most effective degree for your situation, man, it's a thing of beauty. Honestly, it's a thing of beauty. But that possibility is really all in her mindset and really battling a lot of insecurities and being willing to tap into that, like I said, that soft side, to carry yourself like that of an attractive lady, finding out what's attractive to men, masculine men for that matter, but men in general. But being able to carry yourself in that way, same way a man has to know what it means to carry himself in that masculine presence, that masculine energy. There's a masculine look. There's a lot to it that goes, from my understanding and my experience, my perspective as well, is that's what it is for me. You know what I'm saying? Like being able to carry yourself and not being like, oh, I'm old, so I don't care about that stuff. That's fine, because the world is going to treat you how you treat yourself. You don't have to put any effort into your appearance. There's not a requirement. But do not be upset when you see a person who does put forth that effort receiving the benefits of that. You know what I mean? So you can stay. I mean, there's no requirement for anything. You know what I mean? But you get out of this life what you put into it. If you're going to put forth that effort to be in your masculine as a woman, and you're going to get the benefits from that. You know what I'm saying? From operating like that in your, like in your masculine, you're going to attract that opposite. And the same goes if for a woman that decides to tap into and put forth that focus into being in her feminine energy. And once you start doing that, the things you used to be attracted to are no longer attractive to you, just as much as it is for us as males who have decided to purposely carry themselves like more and like recognizing that we're trying to work towards being in our masculine on a day-to-day basis. And it's not going to be perfect by any means, because you're trying to change a system that you've been running for such a long time. I'll say the same thing that I would say to a man, I'm going to say to a woman, it is not that woman's responsibility to wait for you to know how to operate in your masculine. You know what I mean? But at the same time, for a woman, it's not that man's responsibility to wait for you to figure out how to operate in your feminine, because I don't think you would. I don't believe you're going to wait. You know, if you just keep fucking up, honestly, because how did you end up losing the last guy or last person that you were involved with? You know what I mean? Like, I'm sure some of you probably waited out a very, very long time. And let's be honest, it probably was for your own ego. You didn't want to ruin your family or look a certain way or some shit. But overall, you saw it. You saw what was going on. You saw that that person decided that they had reached their cap as far as how they carried themselves. And you just like, you know what? I love them. We're going to try to make the most of it. And somehow or another, it ended the way that it did. And God don't make mistakes. The universe is constantly setting you up for where you're going to be, and you're right where you're supposed to be. That lesson was meant to teach you something, and it's up to you to figure out exactly what that lesson is from what you got in that situation. I can honestly say that me being that goody two shoes, the pushover, the trying to do the right thing, the nice guy, all of that helped to make me where I am for present day. And I'm able to see the difference in how I was treated when I carried myself in that very much blue-pilled mindset versus that of someone that is that purposely hones in on a masculine frame on a day-to-day basis. And again, it is not something that is done to perfection. There are going to be mistakes. There are going to be times where you do slip up, and it'll be the same thing for you. I believe as a woman, you've ran on that system for a very, very long time. However, being able to hone that in and not making anybody else responsible for your mistakes or your happiness, and I'm sure you're going to be fine. You know what I'm saying? Like I find that to be most effective is like when somebody is holding that other person responsible for their happiness, but they're fine just the way they are, just with that. However, there's a certain protocol for a man to carry himself in a way with like honing in the frame. It is our responsibility to do so. If a woman indeed is like, I want to say, kind of acting obnoxious or being obnoxious or something like that, like when you're out in public, that is solely on me. As far as like what I've allowed, that if I'm allowing that behavior to transpire, you know what I mean? And I say that in reverse as well for a woman who is with a guy, and now he's the one that's making the scene. He's the one that is very much acting childish and all this shit. That's all about what you're allowing. You know what I mean? And unfortunately, when we do that, when we behave like a child in front of our woman, what that does is turn on a switch inside a woman for her to be a mom to you. And from that point on, if you continue carrying yourself in that manner, the attraction diminishes every fucking time. And you don't really think about that because you're so caught up in your own fucking world. You just think you're just yourself, as one would call it. You know what I'm saying? I'm just being me. But every behavior we do is a choice. You know what I'm saying? And every choice comes with a consequence with how we carry ourselves. So if I'm going to carry myself as a childish boy, I'm going to get the results of what a childish boy would get. You know, if I carry myself as a man of value and that values himself, I'm going to get the results of that. If a woman is carrying herself as loud and obnoxious and attention seeking and all this shit, she's going to get the results of that. But a woman who carries herself in like of value, secure, and just the ultimate lady, you're going to get the results of that. You know what I'm saying? Like when a lady, it's said many times, when a lady walks in the room, everybody get right. When a gentleman walks in the room, you feel that presence. You know what I'm saying? Which one are you going to be? Are you going to carry yourself in an insecure fashion and attention seek and be loud when you come into an environment? Or are you going to be secure with how you carry yourself? That's a question one has to ask. You know what I'm saying? Don't get me wrong. It's not saying you're quiet all the time, parties and stuff. You know, enjoy yourself. But we definitely know. We've been around long enough. Those, I imagine, my like the fans of this show have been around long enough to seeing people, and it's like, oh, they're really loud as fuck, like obnoxiously. You know what I'm saying? Whether that be male or female. So it kind of, it's a helpful way, I would say. I think it's a helpful way to kind of just keep in mind with how you carry yourself, you know, when you're around your peers and shit like that. But there's a time and place for everything. And I think we all know what that means. But that being said, the possibility of a woman being able to tap into her femininity, yes, it really just depends on that courage. I really think it just boils down to courage, because it's not like it's not within you. It's in you. It's in you. You're born with that. You're born with that masculine energy and feminine energy, and based on what we went through, determine how we lean more into our masculine energy versus our feminine energy. And so what that means is just being conscious of it. Am I carrying myself like a lady? Am I carrying myself like a gentleman? Like, you know, am I carrying myself like a man, or am I carrying myself like a boy? Then that's the question to be asked amongst ourselves. It's a personal question, and it's, again, whatever you choose to do. There's no right or wrong thing by any means. I'm not telling you that if you operate in your masculine energy that you're doing something wrong. You're not. I won't say that. I don't believe in that right or wrong shit. I do believe in perspective, and if I carry myself in this way, I'm going to get this reaction. So it is solely up to that woman. But to answer the question, yes, the possibility is very strong. There's a very strong possibility that a woman that has operated in her masculine energy for so long can tap into her feminine energy. It's all about where she puts her mind into that, and the insecurities and fears that she's willing to overcome to do so. Because again, if opposites attract, operating like what a man would do to kind of protect yourself around men is only going to attract the man that's going to require you to take care of him versus him taking care of you. That's just my mentality. But anyway, that's my thoughts on that. How do you personally reparent yourself? Well, I personally reparent myself. I attempt to, at least. It is by not looking externally for validation, whatever that is. You know what I mean? And what I mean by that is, if I'm going through something, I'm going to sit with it I'm going to sit with my thoughts, and I'm going to ask myself and try to justify, is this thought real, or am I just responding from trauma? And it happens quite often. And not having emotional outbursts and doing your best to be calm in chaos. That's essentially how I reparent myself, is just staying with the notion that I'm enough. And to love myself unconditionally, regardless of the mistakes I've made or make. It's just remembering that you're still lovable. And it sounds kind of mushy coming from a man, but that's really the premise of it, is to remember that you're still lovable, and that everybody else is just as human as you are. There's no one that is more important than you are. It's just another flower on this earth. The flower next to that flower doesn't try to outshine that flower, it just grows. The trees that are in the in the forest. They're not concerned about how the other trees grow. They just grow as much as they possibly can. You know, they just grow. And as a human, stay in your fucking lane. You know, like, comparison is a thief of joy. It truly is. It really is a thief of joy. But do what's in your best interest. You know what I'm saying? Like, to make you grow from where you are. When it comes to self-love, and that's a whole nother thing, is reparenting yourself comes with a lot of self-love. And self-love, sometimes you'll have negative thoughts come in, but you have to be your best friend. And you would not allow your best friend to talk poorly about them. You know what I'm saying? Now, you can be honest about shit, but you wouldn't tear your best friend down, you know, like you're the worst person ever. But for some reason, that's what we tell ourselves and shit. So a part of reparenting yourself is becoming a friend to yourself. And, like, for real, like, taking care of yourself as if you were another person. You know what I'm saying? Like, another person taking care of, you know, because we tend to, you know, we'll stand up for somebody else's shit, and then we'll just take whatever from whoever does it to when it does to us, because essentially we were never taught to value ourselves. A lot of us were taught to take care of others, you know, but we weren't necessarily taught how to value ourselves. So reparenting yourself is becoming your own friend and figuring out the things that you like and not doing it because the group does it. What music do you like? What movies do you like to watch? What thoughts do you have on shit? What are your beliefs? And when you spend enough time with yourself, you realize that you don't necessarily agree with a lot of people that are around you, the stuff that they listen to, the stuff that they watch. And that's okay, because you're enough. You don't have to do it for the in crowd. You don't have to fit in. You can be who you are and belong. And who you are is a fluid concept, because you're learning who you are every day. Every day we come across something new at some point in time. Now, a lot of us somewhat stay on the hamster wheel and we see the same shit every day. It's Groundhog's Day. But if you're paying attention, you're going to recognize something that is new. Time evolves. There's no getting around it. No matter how depressed you get and stay on one particular moment that happened in your life that was traumatic, that time is still evolving. You know, I spent years stuck in the past. I was doing the same thing every day. I was going through the same addiction cycle that kept me what I thought was calming my nervous system, but in actuality, it was just taking me away from living in the present moment. And that's where that porn addiction came in. It calmed the nervous system at the same time, gave me anxiety, and made me and definitely was contributing factor to that depression that I felt. So the interesting thing is that the more you do it, the worse you feel, but the more you want to do it. And it's a constant fucking cycle. And you don't realize the impact that it has on the people around you too. You know, and for some folks that deal with that shit, they really will come to work late because they couldn't pull themselves away from their addiction. Now, granted, that was my addiction, but there's many other addictions that happen where, you know, something happens, you have this idea of how life goes, and then once it doesn't happen, you need something to bring you back to that calm nervous system. So that's where an addiction forms, and the addiction calms your nervous system. Some people is alcohol, some people is weed, some people is harder drugs, you know what I'm saying? Some of it's shopping, some of it is, you know, serial dating, whatever the case is. You know, they come, or church, you know what I mean? Some people go to church. Church can be an addiction. You just find ways to do everything for the church, but you don't do anything for yourself and your family, you know? But when that happens, it's like recognizing, am I doing this for the sheer fact that I want to, or is this part of me, like, am I people pleasing? And I would find myself doing that. I would find myself doing a lot of shit for other people because I was people pleasing, because I was afraid to love my own damn self. I was focusing on external love from others, And that is a love that you have no control over. That is chasing the brass ring in life. Don't get me wrong, you get out what you put in, but just because you put forth that energy towards this person doesn't mean you're going to get that love back from them. It's going to come back to you, but it very well may not be from the person that you have an idea of, you know? And I've seen that many a times for myself throughout life. And it's not to discourage anybody from being kind. I discourage people from being nice, but I'm not discouraging you from being kind. Kind comes with boundaries. Nice doesn't have any, you know? So like learning to protect oneself is another form of like reparenting yourself. And because if you've never been taught to love yourself, to have your own boundaries, to have healthy boundaries, we can change that. You know what I'm saying? Like we can talk to the younger generation, you know, that's coming up behind us, to teach them to have healthy boundaries so that they don't do the people pleasing shit that we did and get involved in a whole bunch of situations throughout life that wasn't necessarily the best for us because we didn't have boundaries. We sat in some shit because we didn't want to hurt somebody else, even though that shit was hurting us, you know? And we're all guilty of that shit at some point in time. Yeah, at some point in time, we were in that scenario, and we just became a toxic cycle of just doing for others, even though it's not what we wanted to do. We started people pleasing because we were afraid to lose love. And how can you lose something that isn't yours? That's the thing that to recognize within yourself is that nothing belongs to you. It doesn't. You don't control the love that you get from others. You can only control the love that you give. You know, now there's a probability chance that you give love with healthy boundaries, that you'll receive love in return. Yes, there is a strong probability that you will, but it doesn't always come from who you think it's going to come from. But the love is going to return because that's how God and his universe works. You know what I'm saying? So just be very mindful of such, that to love unconditionally, because if you do it in hopes, if it's not in business, you know, if you do something believing that that person's going to do the same thing for you, sometimes you're going to be sadly misguided, mistaken for doing so. But if you love unconditionally regardless, and you know that you're enough already, like you're giving from a full cup. So if indeed you don't get shit back from that person, your cup is still full, you know, like it's just a mindset to kind of adapt to. But if you go into it thinking that I'm gonna give them my last and hopefully they fill me up, you're gonna be pissed the fuck off. But you can essentially switch your mindset and you'll feel different about the situation. I've definitely had to learn how to do so over the course of time, especially with the things that I've encountered in life and the way that I was looking at it. It's part of growth, you know, it's part of growth, and that's why I recommend therapy for everyone, but especially men, you know what I'm saying, because we don't necessarily have the best space, the safest space to express said thoughts and emotions and things like that without being judged inadvertently. How to reparent yourself, really sitting with your thoughts, right? And just looking at them as thoughts passing by, and observe, don't absorb. You know what I mean? Like being able to just recognize, okay, this is how I thought about this situation. But if somebody else does something, I don't get to say why that person did it. All I know is that person did it. I don't get to say, well, they did that because of this, if I hadn't talked to them yet. You know what I'm saying? Until I talk to them and confirm why they did that, it is an unconscious assumption for me to be like, well, they did it because of that. No, you believe that based on your insecurities because you don't have all the information. You don't have all the facts. And a lot of us make a lot of thoughts and we don't have all the fucking facts. And we end up running away with a story in our mind. And then by the time we actually talk to the person, that wasn't even the case. Sometimes it matches up, but most of the time it don't match up. You know, it just, we be lost in our fucking head because we need to have an understanding why this thing happened. We need something to confirm this shit so that we can calm our fucking nervous system. Like, oh, this happened because of that. You got to talk to that person and find out for sure. Do you know that for sure is the reason why it happened, or are you assuming that this is why it happened? And, we're scared kids. What can you say? So we got to find a reason why some shit happened. But reparenting yourself, sitting with your thoughts, becoming your own best friend, that's my thought on how to reparent yourself. What is the worst candy ever to you? Licorice and peppermint candy. Pretty much what I call church candy, because that was all that like my mom would have in her purse when we would go to church. And like you that little kid and you don't understand church like an adult would, or somebody a little bit older with a little bit more sense and awareness. So you're like, Mom, you got any candy type thing? And it would be Twizzlers, not pull and peel. Pull and peel is okay, but them regular ass Twizzlers, horrible. And like I said, licorice candy, and then like peppermint candy or butterscotch. Butterscotch is, I gotta be in the mood for that shit. But to me, peppermint is more about having your breath fresh, not so much enjoyment for me. I don't find enjoyment in peppermint candy. Now peppermint tea and like them little like chocolate mints from like the Girl Scouts and shit, perhaps. But as far as like the little circle peppermint candies and licorice, I find that to be the worst candy to ever have been created on the face of this earth. Do you believe love is enough to make a relationship last? No. It's not. It's not going to be enough to make a relationship last. And you would think just by fairy tale thoughts and being lost in your imagination about things, that love would be enough. But no, it takes more. It definitely takes more. And to love somebody, I tell you, starting with yourself, you got to love the ugly side of you. And if you're not able to love the ugly side of you, like the dark side of you, you won't ever truly love another person, because how we treat others is how we treat ourselves. And unconditional love does not mean unconditional tolerance, right? That is the most beautiful phrase I've heard Trent Shelton share. Unconditional love does not mean unconditional tolerance, right? And to me, to make a relationship last, lose the idea of the intimate side, because that intimate side tends to come with a lot of conditions, right? It comes with a lot of conditions, whether we knowing and unknowingly, that happens. I'm sure we've all been there. I can see young me, like if she don't call me in 10 minutes, it's over. You know what I mean? Like that expectation, the entitlement, the ego was very much present in that moment. And truth be told, a lot of us really don't know how to love one another. We essentially have to learn how to love one another. But because of how things look and appear, and maybe even attention seeking somewhat, we are very quick to rush into shit. And just to be like, I have a boyfriend, I have a girlfriend, I have a wife, I have a husband and whatnot, but I haven't learned how to love you yet. And because I haven't learned how to love myself. if I'm being honest, man. So is love enough to keep a relationship going? No. It's going to take boundaries. It's going to take boundaries to make a relationship last. You are going to have to see a person as human and not the imaginary person that you have them in your mind. And I'm okay with being wrong about this. You know, it's not about right or wrong, but I'm almost certain that all of us have this idea of a person. And when that idea gets shattered, them doing something we did not anticipate them doing or wanted them to do, the illusion is ruined by the truth. Perspective. I see love being, is love enough to make a relationship last? Nah, it's going to take some courage, man. It's going to take courage. It's going to take fight. It's going to take overcoming a lot of fears, overcoming a lot of illusions, healthy boundaries. I see it. You can have love for somebody, but that doesn't necessarily mean you're meant to marry them. I believe in a marriage, and I don't know shit about marriage. I've never been married. I've been engaged on some puppy love shit coming into the Air Force, but I don't know a fucking thing about marriage or even, I say, a healthy relationship by any means. But I can tell you that learning how to love somebody comes with a lot of distorting illusions. And yeah, you can have a masculine frame. You can have a masculine frame. The things just run differently. You know what I'm saying? Like, my love for you can be unconditional and even be eternal, but that doesn't necessarily mean I can stay in this relationship with you because I love myself more. I love myself enough to not sit in something that allow you to continuously project your pain onto me. And that's a tough choice to make, man. Same with, like I say, with marriage. Just because you love somebody, there's plenty of people that have divorced people that they love. They had to make a choice for their mental health. They really did. And there's love, and then there's your marriage, and then there's love, and then there's attraction, as we talked about in the previous episode. But like that, I tell you, love, you gotta be willing to be stupid. You have to willing to be perceived as stupid, because it's all about perspective. And no one can tell you how to feel about something. You just feel it from your own perspective, because it's you. It's the love that you have for something. Some people love Harry Potter. Some people love Stranger Things. Some people love Lord of the Rings. Some people love Power series. Some people love, The Wire. Whatever it is. And then there's other people that are like, you're crazy for buying all that merch from that show, because they don't see the love that you have for that. And I believe it goes the same way with a love that you have for someone is the same way you have love for something. You have more control over the thing than you do another person, unless you have mind control. And that's manipulative and, toxic as fuck. But, that is very much true. But even still, that person is giving you that control over their mind. But you don't have control over another person's ability to love. But even if they're being disrespectful to you, you have to love yourself enough to leave, man. And it's tough. It's tough, to do that. And that's just being honest with myself, being on both sides of it, from projecting my pain, from having it projected onto me and sitting in that shit, and like, oh, well, my ego wants me to show how much I love this person that I'm willing to go through all this. Nah, not necessarily, man. And that's where it goes to. You gotta love yourself more than that situation. When it comes to that scenario, don't get me wrong. Love is going to take some effort. I don't believe in sitting in pain to prove that I love somebody. In that regard, yeah. So it's going to take I'm definitely a firm believer that it takes more than that to to make a relationship last. It's a lot of stuff that I don't even think we're privy to, because a lot of us are still caught in fear. You know what I mean? We're not living in love. We're living in fear of a lot of things, and we act out of fear. We do things out of fear. We find ourselves getting jealous in our mind. Some people actually show it outside, but in our head, we end up having this sense of jealousy or even some envy. Being able to love is loving from a place of like appreciation and not possession. That to me is true. That to me is the true essence of love. I mean, I think that's one of the most potent quotes I've ever heard about love. And it's hell trying to get your mind and action to match it. But to me, love is about appreciation and not about possession. So yeah, it takes more than just love. It takes a level of respect. It's going to take some self-love, number one. You got to love yourself. Otherwise, people are going to treat you how you treat yourself. That type of thing. People respect boundaries. You just have to have them, and all about how you're carrying yourself with yourself. And if you weren't taught that, if you saw a lot of toxicity as normal, you don't realize that it's toxic. You just think it's normal. And it's like trying to change the cycle. Break the cycle of what you saw, because it led down this particular path. And as much as we try to not be like our parents, a lot of us, we end up doing the same shit that we saw because it was normal. You don't realize it's toxic, but we end up doing it because it's normal to us. You know what I'm saying? We're running on cycles. We're running on old ass cycles. And it's having the courage to, one, be accountable and say, yeah, I'm doing fucked up shit for myself. Doesn't necessarily mean it's fucked up for somebody else, but I'm doing fucked up shit for myself, and I'm back on this toxic cycle. How am I going to go about breaking it, man? And some people do, and some people stay the course and just continuously have the same outcomes. And we pass it on to the next generation, because if we got kids, they're watching. They're constantly watching, for sure, because they're trying to figure shit out. So I'm gonna do what I saw. And no matter how hard some of us try to not do what our parents did, we end up becoming our fucking parents. And in a sense, because it's familiar to us, and it's just asking ourselves, is this familiar to me or is this best for me? So love. Is love enough to make a relationship last? No, it's gonna take a lot more. A lot of shit that I know nothing about, yet at least, just you're learning how to love people. That's really, I believe that's all we really can do, is learn how to love someone. I don't believe there's one way to make a relationship last. There's no one way for that. I believe that's definitely different. I do believe what's effective and what's not effective. So figure out what is effective for you and yours. And but for me, I just don't, love is not enough to make a relationship last. It's going to definitely come with some boundaries, with some effort, with some respect for self, so that you can give respect to others. It's going to take faith, for sure, whatever you believe in, as long as you believe in the fact that, then it's going to take faith. It's going to take a mindset, to withstand what is to come, to stay, to work on yourself, number one. Learn how to love unconditionally, love yourself unconditionally, so that you can learn to love others unconditionally, but not without unconditional tolerance. So it's like, it's a total mind fuck in a sense. That's how I see it. But you're not able to help that, that love that you have for whatever person. You just got to love yourself enough if they're not in a place where they can love you, in a healthy way, in an effective way. So yeah, I think that is going to be the conclusion of the show. So I appreciate everyone checking out each episode, as always. But this is Romy Mac, and I'm out. Good night, kids. Bye.